Good afternoon. Today we're coming with, today is February and we're thinking that it's Heart Health Month and we're gonna have a great recipe that Miss Jamie's gonna do. But I just would like to, if it's okay, to give you a few heart healthy tips. And some of the things that we can do to protect our hearts, and one of them is not smoking. And if you are smoking, we can always ask one of your providers. We have different things that we can do to help you to cut down and to stop. It says to get moving. Move at about 30 minutes most days of the week. It doesn't have to be anything major. It could be walking, water aerobics. I like to garden. Little things that can get more steps in your day is park away when you're going to the grocery store and walk in. And if you have steps, use that. Try to sleep 7 to 8 hours a day. Most of us don't get that, so that's a big one. Managing our stress, trying to get a healthy perspective with that. Eating healthy, limiting alcohol. Females should not have more than 1 drink a day or 2 for fellas. And again, if you're having any troubles, we have Jimmy that can help you with it, or ask one of us. Keeping appointments and staying on your medications as prescribed. And then I put know your numbers. When we're sticking you for blood, we should tell you what your results are. And some of the small things that you'll want to know is your blood pressure. And one of the things we like to do is we like to make sure your blood pressure is less than 140/90, because that means your heart doesn't have to work as hard. Blood sugars with diabetes. Good control of your blood sugars are very good. Now, we get a green light if it's 5.6 or less. There's no diabetes, no pre-diabetes. We get a yellow light for pre-diabetes, which means we probably have some genes or some lifestyle things that we can try to alter a little bit, and that would be 5.7 to 6.4. And then, of course, diabetes. Now, if you're a diabetic, we like our A1C 6.9 or less, and then that shows me that we've done real good control. Cholesterol, that has to do with our fats. When you look at it, we're going to say the LDL is the bad cholesterol. Just remember, the bad go down and the good go up. So your HDL is your good cholesterol and the LDL is your bad cholesterol. And we want our LDL somewhere definitely less than 100. And if you've had heart problems or strokes, then we like it 70 or less. Triglycerides, that's one that we can see sometimes when our blood sugars are elevated, and we like that less than 150. And so one of the things we're going to say is how we eat more of our veggies, lean protein, and unsaturated fats. And we're going to have a good recipe today brought by Jamie, and I wish you could smell the aromas in here. It smells good. But this month we've had a big focus on heart health. And Scott has been helping us to get active, to get moving, to keep moving. And Casey is teaching us how to de-stress with our stretching and our yoga. And Keith is helping us with the veggies, the farm fresh veggies. And you know, our veggies will always help with that. And then today, Jamie's going to teach us how to do good, low-fat, healthy fats for our diets.
3 fatty acids. So I'm going to kind of go over those as we're starting to cook. But omega-3 fatty acids, essentially what those are those are essential fatty acids that your body needs, but doesn't really produce. So we have to have food sources of those. And so on your sheet that I gave you guys, and that we'll post to Facebook, it has just a list of those omega-3 rich foods. So there are 3 types of omega-3s. There's alpha-linolenic acid foods, and then we have EPA and DHA rich foods. And so those ALA rich foods are going to be your things like plant oils, soybean oil, canola oil, nuts and seeds like flaxseeds, walnuts, and kind of mixed nuts. And that'll be right there on your list. Even navy, kidney beans, and edamame, if you guys have had that at a restaurant or at home. And then those foods that are going to be rich in EPA and DHA are going to be things like oily fish like herring, mackerel, salmon, rainbow trout, halibut, tuna. And tuna is going to be incorporated in our recipe today. And then other seafood like shrimp and Pacific oysters. And so the general recommendation for omega-3 fatty acids is we want to have 2 4-ounce servings of fish per week, and that gives us the appropriate amount of EPA and DHA that we need. And we also want to include some of those ALA-rich sources throughout the week as well. And you guys may be going, well, what does that matter? How does that benefit me? Well, there's a ton of research that shows that it improves your risk for cardiovascular disease and stroke. It also helps to keep your brain, your eyes, your heart, and your immune system healthy. So it's a really important thing for us to incorporate in our diet throughout the week. So now we're going to get started on our tuna stuffed avocado with corn salsa. So, and you guys have this to take home. So we're going to just kind of get started. Now, before you are going to start this recipe at home, one thing I recommend is go look in your pantry and your refrigerator to see if you have any of this stuff. And that's really going to save you from going to the grocery store, getting all your ingredients and getting home and saying, oh man, I've already had frozen corn, or I already had a couple of tomatoes. So doing that inventory. So once you've done your inventory, you've made your grocery list, go to the grocery store, you get it. And I purchased all of this except for 2 things at Aldi. But Aldi had all of these ingredients. I just didn't need the mass quantities that they were selling. But I got it all for under $15, so I think it was about $12. And this is going to serve 6 people. And so that's a pretty good price range for a meal for 6 people. So hit up Aldi, and I know that's on the bus route, so if you're taking the bus, then that is going to be something that's easily accessible and it's a budget-friendly place to shop. So before we get started, you would definitely need to wash your hands, and I just did that before we started. And so I recommend washing your hands for about 20 seconds. That just gets all the germs, making sure to get by your thumbs and under your fingernails, just making sure that your hands are really clean before you start making food for yourself and for others. And so next what I've done is, this is called mise en place. It's just a really fancy word for saying get all of your things together. So look at your recipe and go ahead and pre-measure out everything. Have you ever been making food and you're like, oh no, it says to melt the butter, and you're melting the butter, and then you're like, oh no, I've got to measure out the flour, and you're just kind of rushing to get it all done. This is going to really help with that, just having it all together. But I am going to show you, kind of demonstrate how we want to cut and prepare some of our vegetables. So our first thing on our list, it said to get frozen corn. And so I got this at Aldi. It's just one of those steamable bags of corn. And I steamed it about an hour before this presentation. And then I let it cool, and then I put it in the refrigerator to kind of chill further. Just because we all like chilled things for tuna salads and things like that. And so at home, you know, that would just be your first step. But right here, we already have it prepared. And then your next step would be to go ahead and prep your vegetables. So that second step, it says to prepare your tomatoes, your cilantros, your red onion, and your jalapeno. So we've already done that, but I'll kind of demonstrate how we want to go ahead and cut these vegetables. So we'll start with our tomato. So I'm using a cutting board, and my cutting board has a sticky part on the bottom that keeps it from moving around. But at home, if you have a cutting board, you might put a wet paper towel underneath it to keep it from sliding around, and that'll help to prevent you from cutting yourself. And then I'm using a paring knife, but you can use like a chef's knife, whatever you have at home that you can use. And one thing you want to do is you want to have your thumb here and your pointer finger here. And you want to kind of cup these fingers here. We want to make sure we don't have any accidents while we're cutting. And so this is kind of the motion we want to do. We want to stick the sharp piece in, and we want to kind of slide it across the cutting board like that. And so I'm going to cut off the end here. And there's several different ways to dice a tomato, but kind of my process is to keep those fingers curled and to cut into some thin slices like this. And so you would do the whole tomato like that, and then what I do is I cut that in half further, and maybe even again, since we're dicing these. And then you're gonna just go across like this. And then you have your diced tomatoes. And so our next item that we have on the vegetables that we're preparing is the cilantro. So like I said, I already have these prepared for us. And this is actually fresh cilantro from our garden. And everybody that came today, you get a whole swig of cilantro to take home. So some people do this differently. I personally like to just pinch off the leaves. Some people are fine with just going ahead and chopping through. This is just a personal preference. I don't like to have kind of like stringy things whenever I am cooking or baking. And so you would have this in your larger quantity. It calls for a cup of cilantro. And so what you would do is you would take your bunch of cilantro. Let's take some of these veggies out of the way that we have on our cutting board. And you'll just kind of take these in a bunch, being mindful of your fingers, and you'll just finally rock your knife back and forth. And then you may have to grab it again and kind of turn it in another direction, rock that back and forth, being mindful of your fingers. And then you would have your cilantro prepared. And then next we're going to do the onion. So I've already sort of started on this onion, so let's get this onion here. So I've cut this onion in half. I've peeled away all of the outside, and I've cut this onion in half. And so we'll keep the little fuzzy end there, and we'll start a process that's called julienning. Let me get some of the cilantro off our knife here. And so we'll stick the sharp end here. And we're just going to evenly cut across like this, being mindful of your fingers, get those curled under like that to make sure we're not having any cutting accidents. We definitely want to avoid that while we're cooking. And then once we've kind of gone all the way through our onion like this and done the julienning process, then you can finally chop them like this, and then they'll kind of fall off, as you see, like right here. And so then kind of at that point, they're not more finely separated. I just take a section and slide through it. And we want to make these as even as possible, just so they're, especially for a dish like this, that we're not having to cook further, but rather that we're mixing. We want to make sure they're even, but especially if you're cooking, we want to make sure they're even just so they all cook the same. So we'll switch that little example over. And then for your jalapeno, I've already cut ours in half, but this is what it looks like on the inside. So kind of what I choose to do, again, people cut peppers a little bit differently, but I like to go ahead and cut these seeds out like this. I just make a little cut on each side and pull out the seeds. And sometimes if the seeds are pretty persistent and they're really deep in there, I like to run them under some water. But these came out pretty well. My advice is do not touch your face after you've touched this jalapeno. I learned that the hard way when I was a teenager. It will be very, very hot on your eyes. All right, and so then you're gonna take that, flip it on its side, or you can keep it on either side, it's fine. And cut that down the middle. You're gonna have your two pieces, and then I cut it even further, cut it in half again, and then that's where we're gonna do our rock and slide with our knife. And then if you want them more finely chopped, you can turn it over again and more finely chopped, doing our rocking motion with our knife. All right, so now we have all of those vegetables prepped and an example of how we need to do that. So looking at our instructions, we've got our corn ready. We have all of our vegetables ready. And now we're gonna mix it all into a bowl together. So I'm just using a mixing bowl. You can use whatever you have. So we're gonna put our corn in. And then we're gonna do our tomatoes. We'll do our cilantro. We're gonna do our red onion. And then we're going to do a little bit of our lime juice. We're gonna just kind of sprinkle that on the top. Here's our lime juice that we've already pre-measured. And then we're also gonna put in our jalapenos. All right, so now we have all of these things together. And so we can take our mixing spoon and we can just mix that all together pretty finely, kind of evenly distributed throughout the bowl here.
That's pretty.
It is, it's got lots of nice color. Now tell me, do you guys like cilantro? Or have you guys ever had it?
Yes.
As I was preparing this, all of the staff came in and some said, I love cilantro, and some said, I think it tastes like soap. And that's actually a genetic thing, that some people, when they taste cilantro, it tastes like soap. But I am glad that you ladies like it. It's gonna make this really, really tasty. So now we have that finely and pretty well mixed up and evenly distributed throughout our bowl. So what we can do is we can put this on the side as we prepare the tuna portion, okay? So I'm just gonna sit this on our cutting board here, out of the way. All right, so, and it pretty evenly breaks it down for you in the instructions. So now we're gonna head for that tuna section. So we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna get another mixing bowl. And we're gonna go ahead and put in our tuna. Now it calls for, the recipe calls for a 12.5 ounce pouch, but if you can't find those, they have 5 ounce cans. So these are the ones that I used. They're at Aldi. I think they're about 80 cents. And so I just got 3 of these. So that's technically 15 ounces, but as long as you drain the water out of those, then you'll be good to go. So just gonna get all of that out. All right. Let me put this bowl here. All right, so next we're gonna put in our yogurt. So you ladies were telling me that you would normally put mayo with your tuna. This is just plain Greek yogurt. So this is a really good alternative. It's gonna be lower in fat, and it's just gonna overall, it's got a really good taste to it. So we're gonna add that in. And then we've got our lemon juice. And then we have pepper. And then it does call for salt to taste if you want salt. And then what we're gonna do is we're just gonna mix that up. Gonna get it nice and evenly distributed.
Jamie, this looks like this could be prepared in advance.
It can, yes. I was just about to say yes. That's a great observation. No, that's perfect. That is a great observation. This is one of those things that you can make on Sunday, meal prep, and this could be your lunch for the entire week, or you can have it for lunch 3 days a week. I am a big proponent of meal prepping. That's going to really save you time and help you to make healthier choices throughout the week. And so now that we've gotten that pretty evenly mixed together, we're going to mix it in with our corn salsa. Excuse my clanking as we get it together. All right, and then we'll put this over to the side. All right, so we're gonna get our handy mixing spoon back, and we're just gonna mix this together.
It is pretty.
And our food doesn't have to be pretty, but I just like it when what I'm eating is really nice to look at. It's got lots of color, lots of really good smells. All right, so we want to make sure that corn especially is really nice and mixed together, because we don't want our bites to just be tuna or just to be corn. We want to have all of that flavor whenever we bite into this. All right, so now that we've gotten that mixed up, we're going to put that to the side, and then we're going to add in our celery. So we want to get that celery nice and combined in there. Now some people like their celery more finely chopped. I like big chunks of celery. So that's really just a personal preference, whether you want large pieces of chopped celery or smaller. Totally up to you and your family. And the thing I love about this recipe is, you know, my sister-in-law, I made this for her the other day, and she said, you know, your brother does not really like celery. And I was like, well, the perfect thing about this is you still get all of these yummy vegetables, and you can take the celery out, or maybe you don't like onion, or maybe you don't like cilantro. You know, you can adapt this recipe to fit what your family likes best. All right, so now we've gotten that all well combined. So we're going to put this over to the side. And let's kind of move some of our milk prep things out of the way here. All right, and now here's the fun part. We're going to take our avocados, and I was just telling Casey this before. A lot of times people think, I'm not going to eat the outside of an avocado. There are certain fruits and vegetables that maybe we're not going to eat the outside of it. But it's really important for us to go ahead and wash it anyway, because our knife is going to cut through that, and it's going to get on the part that we are eating. And we want to make sure we've gotten any dirt or any germs from other people's fingers, especially avocados, because everybody goes into the store and they say, wow, how soft is this? Is this ready to go? No, and then they put it down. So how many people have touched this avocado? And so I have washed this thoroughly, ladies. So feel comfortable that this one is clean. And so you're going to just cut that in half, and then you're just going to slide it And here you go. And so let's grab another spoon. Forgive me, I am new to the kitchen. So what we're going to do at this point is we're going to slide our spoon just kind of underneath it right there along the side. And these are super, for the most part, they're normally very easy to scoop out. So there you go. Very easy to scoop out. Okay. And so we're going to take our sample cups off for just a moment. And we're going to scoop this onto this plate. And now here's where the fun part begins. We are going to stuff this really yummy avocado half. Now it's definitely, your consistency is going to be different. So I'm going to use my hands just for the purpose of kind of making this a little bit more firm in here. All right, and so every avocado half is going to look a little bit differently, but this is essentially what each of yours are going to look like. And so you can fill that more if your avocado is bigger. If you want to fill this more than the whole of your avocado, then you can take your spoon and kind of make that center a little bit wider if you want to put more filling. But also my recommendation is to get maybe some whole wheat crackers and have on the side with that. Okay, and that is our tuna stuffed avocado with corn salsa. And now we're going to enjoy these with the ladies that have come for our food demo today. But thank you so much for logging on. And if you have any questions, let us know. Thank you.